What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So, with early signing day basically over with now, at least the first few days, I'm now ready to start putting out my rankings of how well each Power 5 team has done in recruiting up to this point, with this first video being focused on the SEC. Now, before we get into the rankings, I need to quickly just explain how I'm going to be ranking these teams. This is not just a video that's supposed to say who has the highest rated class, because that would be a pretty pointless video. You guys can just Google that on your own. Instead, I will be accounting for each team's unique situation that they're in. Did they have a coaching change? How are they doing on the field? What do they normally recruit like? Their prior performance, like I said, so it's similar to what I was saying with what they normally recruit like, and just other external factors, not just raw numbers, to determine who has really done the best given their current situations, which I feel like is a much better way to look at how these teams have really performed rather than just ranking who had the most 5 stars and 4 stars and so on. Also, I will be including the transfer portal in this to some extent as well, so keep that in mind. With all that being said, let's just go ahead and get into number 14. So, number 14 for the SEC, I have Ole Miss. They have the number 13 class in the conference and the number 24 class in the nation. So, just to start off with, Lane Kiffin has had really good on-field success with Ole Miss early on, but the recruiting class is really struggling to build off of that. I mean, with seeing the kind of continuity they have at head coach, you would really like to see better recruiting due to that, especially with so many coaches this offseason in particular moving jobs. You know, with Lane Kiffin having a 10-win season, you have Matt Corral, who had a Heisman push for a while there, and you know, just the sort of the charisma that he has as a coach on his own. You'd really like to see them, you know, recruit a little better, especially with, like I said, that continuity at head coach that a lot of other programs don't have. But instead, here they are as the 13th class out of 14 in the conference. 24 nationally is still pretty good, but the problem is that they don't compete specifically on a national scale. They compete on the conference level for 8 of their games, and if you're recruiting at the bottom of the conference, just not going to be good enough. They have done okay in the portal in the past, and there's word of them maybe looking at getting a Zach Evans and some other guys in the portal. So that's not all bad news there, but it's just not really enough, in my opinion, to make up for this class, considering the amount of on-field success they've had. I really would have expected to see them do a lot better in recruiting. And so now for number 13, we have Florida, who has the number 14 class in the conference and the number 50 class nationally. And look, I know that some people are already going to be like, well, if Florida's at 50 nationally, how can you honestly say that Ole Miss is doing worse than them? It's because Florida had a head coaching change that literally just hit. I mean, he had maybe a week or two to put together a class, and from that, he let go a lot of the people that were already in the class, which some people would say is a bad thing. I think it could be a good thing, because it's not like they weren't willing to stay. It was more of a, look, Billy Napier told them he needs to reevaluate them to promise if they're going to get an offer or not just going to keep the offer that they had under the prior coaching staff, and a lot of guys left due to that. But with all that being said, they hit on Shamar James, they hit on Kamari Wilson. They're probably going to hit a lot of guys in the portal. 13th in conference and 50th nationally are still unacceptable for Florida going forward, which is why they are so low on the list. But hits like Kamari Wilson and Shamar James, plus the new coaching staff and all, because of stuff like that, I've got to put them up above Ole Miss for now. And now at number 12, I have Vanderbilt, the Vanderbilt Commodores. They have the number 13 class in the conference and the number 37 class nationally. And while that's not very good, for Vanderbilt, that's actually not bad. They're pretty consistently the worst class in the conference. They're not right now. And 37th nationally is a lot higher than normal for them. They're normally hovering around the 50 mark. And, you know, it's Vandy, okay? So their expectations are incredibly low. But this is actually a pretty decent class for them, especially considering how awful their on-field performance was this year. I mean, even for Vanderbilt, they had a down year. I mean, this was a bad team. They've also got a new head coach at this point. I mean, he's been here for one full season, but he's not like a tenured head coach or anything, especially considering how poorly he did on field. It's not like he has much momentum behind him or anything like that. So honestly, I'm pretty impressed with what Vanderbilt's been able to do in the recruiting class, considering that they're Vanderbilt. It's nothing to write home about, but I'd say so far it's been more impressive than both Ole Miss and Florida has been, considering who they are and what they have to work with. Now for number 11, we have Mississippi State. They have the number 10 class in the conference and the number 22 class in the nation. Overall, not a bad class, but pretty similar to Ole Miss. They've had some decent on-field success, not to the same extent that Ole Miss has had, but still pretty decent on-field success under Mike Leach. They've got coaching continuity. Mike Leach is supposed to be a pretty good recruiter, at least he's supposed to have the big personality for it and all. You'd like to see him put up a little bit better numbers than 10th in the conference, especially because they pulled off some big wins this year. They beat Texas A&M, for example. I mean, overall, though, it's not a bad class by any means with 22 nationally. None of the classes in the SEC are really bad classes. It's just you have to do so well in recruiting in the SEC to really have a high-ranked class within your own conference. So that makes it really difficult for Mississippi State and teams of that caliber in particular. But that's why I've got them at 11. Decent class, just nothing crazy, nothing to really move them up. I'd like to see a little bit better considering that they have continuity at the coaching spot. Moving on to number 10 now, we have LSU. They have the number 8 class in the conference and the number 18th ranked class nationally. So, again, somewhat similar to the previous ones. It's not a bad class at all, especially you consider they just got a brand new head coach in Brian Kelly. But it's LSU. I mean, they're a powerhouse program even when they have coaching changes. And it's not like they got an unproven head coach. They got Brian freaking Kelly. I mean, he's a pretty proven head coach. 8th in conference is not good enough for them. Neither is being 18th nationally. You expect to see a lot better out of them. A lot of it is just due to the coaching turnover they have right now. I would still like to see them a little bit higher than where they are. Still a good class, all things considered, as far as the brand new head coaching group goes. This is a really solid class, and I expect them to really build upon it going forward. They're getting Miles Brennan back in the portal. I'm sure they're going to hit a few other kids in the portal to help alleviate this, and they still have the later signing day. But as just purely based off of right now, I can't go necessarily off of projections. Purely based on right now, I've got them at number 10. Somewhat disappointing class for them so far, but it does make sense when you consider all the coaching turnover that they've had. On to number 9, we have South Carolina. They have the number 11 class in the conference and the number 23 class in the nation. Overall, it's a pretty freaking good class, all things considered, especially when you factor in that they picked up Spencer Rattler and Austin Stogner in the portal, which doesn't factor into that number 11 in class, number 23 nationally. South Carolina has been a program that has struggled with recruiting, at least at a high level recently. They've had really bad on-field success until coming into this year. Most people expected 3 or 4 wins. They pull out a 6-6 season, pull off a couple big upsets over teams like Florida and Auburn, get some good momentum going. They did lose a 4-star linebacker to Maryland, who literally 4 or 5 days before signing day committed to them and then flipped to Maryland on signing day. And that hurts a lot. That really pulled their class down from around the 15 spot to the 23 spot. And they didn't hit any big names on signing day. But if you really consider the Spencer Rattler move, I think that completely justifies them being at least this high, maybe even higher, you could argue, especially when you consider where the program is. They're building in the right direction. They still have a long way to go, though. So I expect them next year to be a little bit higher than this as far as their class or the rank for their class in the conference and nationally. But we'll see. This is just focused on where they are right now, and I think really the Spencer Rattler move is enough to justify putting them at number 9 so far. Moving on now, we're at number 8, and that is the Arkansas Razorbacks for me. They have the number 9 class in the conference, number 19 class nationally, and this is a good but not great class for Sam Pittman. The portal helps them out a lot. They picked up Jaden Hazelwood. They'll probably pick up 1 or 2 more kids in the portal at least. I would like to see a higher ranked recruiting class from them, though, after how good they did on the field this year and last year, to be honest. So with the amount of on-field success they've been putting together, I would really like to see them get above this spot a little bit. But it is still Arkansas. We do need to keep in perspective that just before Sam Pittman got there 2 years back, they hadn't won a conference game in 20-something games in a row. They were on a 20-something game conference losing streak. Getting them up to a number 19 class nationally, number 9 in the conference, picking up a Jaden Hazelwood, helping to build off some of their on-field success. I think this is still a big move for Arkansas, for Sam Pittman. Would like to see them do a little bit better, but not bad by any means. Pretty solid class overall for Arkansas. Now at number 7, we have the Auburn Tigers, and this is kind of a surprising one considering how they started, but they have the number 7 class in the conference and the number 15 class nationally. Now, like I said, this class started off pretty horribly. They had a very slow start. They had severe coaching turnover in the fact that they have a brand new head coach in Brian Harsin, who was in his first year here. Then you couple with that, they fire Mike Bobo mid to late season. They fire their receivers coach at one point. They almost lose to Georgia State, which was not a good look. And, their quarterback transfers out of the program. There were rumors that Tank Bigsby was going to transfer out of the program. And yet they keep Tank Bigsby home. They have a very quiet but very successful signing day. Climb up to the number 15 class in the nation, number 7 class in the conference. It was an incredibly strong finish for them in a year that was full of on-the-field struggles, lots of coaching turmoil, and a class that just didn't start off going very well. Very good finish for them, but Auburn does still generally demand better than the number 15 class in the nation. They would like to get up in that top 10 range. But overall, honestly, considering the circumstances, I don't think they really could have done much better than what they ended with, considering how they started off and some of the coaching turnover they had. So overall, pretty good class for Auburn. I think very easily justifies them being up at number 7. At number 6, another surprise for me, the Missouri Tigers. They have the number 5 class in the conference and the number 12 class nationally. To me, this is just super impressive considering how poor they've played on the field this year. They picked up a huge win in 5-star receiver Luther Burden, took him away from schools as big as Georgia. I mean, he's the number 1 receiver in the country by some metrics, and that is absolutely huge for a team like Missouri to get a player of that status. Very good class all the way around. I mean, the 5th best class in the conference in the SEC, number 12 nationally. I mean, that is a huge signing day class for Missouri, who's not really a very good team on the field this past year. Their coaching staff has some question marks around it, and they just come out and they churn out a borderline top 10 class, which is just honestly super, super impressive. Didn't see it coming. Very well done. I still don't really know how they pulled it off, to be honest with you. But a very good class from Missouri, I think, clearly makes them an easy justification at number 6. Now at number 5, a similar situation to the Missouri thing. Tennessee, they have the number 6 class in the conference and the number 14 class nationally, so just a tick below where Missouri ended. But if you consider where this program was when Jeremy Pruitt left, all of the NCAA allegations, the investigations, almost half of the roster transferred out, if not more. I mean, they were barely able to field a team under Josh Heupel at the beginning. They come out, they have really good on-field success considering. They get a lot of hype and momentum going around the program. And honestly, it's kind of a miracle how well Heupel has done with what he has to work with on the field. But then also you pull in, you get the number 6 class in the conference, number 14 class nationally. That's huge for Tennessee. I mean, that is a big-time recruiting class for them. They haven't recruited that well really in recent years, unless you count some of the Jeremy Pruitt classes, but then most of them all transferred out of the program anyway. And as we now know, Pruitt was doing some pretty shady stuff to get him there. So this is honestly really impressive from Heupel, and if you can continue to build with some on-field success, continue to get recruiting classes like this, or maybe even a little better, you bump that up just a notch, get the on-field play up a notch, get the recruiting up a notch, you can start to build a more consistent program that could be contending in the SEC East at least as the number 2 team behind Georgia going forward. So very exciting for Tennessee fans. I know they haven't had a lot to be happy about over the last few years. So hopefully this will get them a little bit more excited. Pretty solid signing day class for Tennessee, especially when you consider their situation. And that is why I have them all the way up at number 5. Okay, at number 4, I have the Georgia Bulldogs. They have the number 3 class in the conference and the number 3 class in the nation. To me, this one was very hard to rank them this low, considering how outstanding of a class this is. I mean, it is such a great class. There's still room for it to grow to. It could still end up at number 1. However, they did lose Kamari Wilson to Florida, which does hurt some. And honestly, as great as this class is, it's kind of just par for the course for Georgia at this point. Continuous dominance in recruiting is nothing new for Kirby Smart there. This class, I don't think, is anything game-changing for Georgia. It's just another outstanding recruiting class, and you might would have liked to see them address the receiver position a little bit more than they did. And, because of that, I have them at 4. I know it kind of sounds like I'm downing on them. This is an outstanding class. There's really nothing to be upset about with this class, especially considering they still have room to grow. They could still hit the portal, too. It's an outstanding class all the way around. It's just you have come to expect this from Georgia, so it's hard to put them above some of these teams that I have ahead of them in the rankings. So that is why I've got Georgia at number 4. At number 3, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, they have the number 2 class in the SEC. They also have the number 2 class in the nation. And it's just another elite level class. Could finish at number 1. It will definitely end up in the top 3 at worst. Saban just continues to recruit at an absolutely elite level. Nobody can consistently do it better than him. You've seen Georgia snag a number 1 class once. Looks like A&M could do it this year. But year after year after year, it's Alabama and Nick Saban. They added another absolutely elite wide receiver in Shaz Preston on signing day. They're Alabama. What else is there to say about them? Absolutely ridiculous class. No reasons to be upset about this class at all if you're Alabama. It's just kind of similar with the Georgia point. This is what we expect to see from Alabama. This is nothing game-changing. This is the expectation, and so while that will still be rewarded by putting them all the way up at number 3, it's nothing crazy or groundbreaking. It's just Alabama being Alabama. And so that's why I have them at number 3. Outstanding class, just more of the same, keeping the status quo there in Tuscaloosa. Now at number 2, sort of the surprise, I guess, of this ranking, I have Kentucky here. They're the number 4 class in the conference and the number 11 class nationally. And to me, this is just crazy impressive for Kentucky. I mean, 11th nationally is absolutely huge for them, as is 4th in the conference. They keep Keontae Goodwin, who had a very late push that he might end up at Michigan State. In the 9th hour, he stays at Kentucky. That is a legitimate 5-star elite level offensive lineman. He's like 6'8", 350, and he cut down to get to that weight. He's a massive man. Outstanding offensive lineman. Outstanding class for them, to be honest. If you lose Keontae Goodwin, maybe I bump him back. They keep him, though. There's still room in the class. They've had portal success in the past with a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, so you could see them dip into the portal again, most likely, although, again, not a projection-based video. Just talking a little bit about Kentucky as a program right now. And just to be honest, I think that 11th nationally for Kentucky is a bigger deal than 3rd is for Georgia and 2nd is for Bama at this point. I mean, Georgia getting the 3rd recruiting class in the nation is really good, and they're really happy with that. It's also what they expect. Alabama at 2 is what they expect, if not at number 1. Kentucky at 11 is not what you expect from Kentucky. That is an outstanding class. They've coupled with some really good on-field success the past few years, and Mark Stoops is just doing an outstanding job there. Super impressed with Kentucky, and that's why I have them all the way up at number 2 in the SEC rankings. And then at number 1, who else could it be but Texas A&M? They have the number 1 class in the SEC and the number 1 class in the nation, and it's just outstanding. I mean, they are the number 1 class in everything at this point. It's an absolutely historic class for them. It's full of blue chip prospects. Still could add 3 more 5-stars to their class, which is just ridiculous at this point, in Shamar Stewart, Harold Perkins, and Denver Harris. And that just adds to guys like Walter Nolan. And, I mean, they've got what Jimbo Fisher says is the best quarterback in America. They have just ridiculous playmakers all across the board, offense, defense. This is an absolute historic class. It could go down as the best class in recruiting history. Honestly, it's amazing what they've been able to do. They beat Alabama on the field this year. It looks like they're going to beat them in recruiting this year. I know they went 8-4, but this class could legitimately overhaul the face of the SEC West in the future. It could be a legitimate changing of the guard moment in the SEC West, and I'm super excited to see where it goes. Outstanding job by Jimbo Fisher. I don't think that you could really make an argument for anybody else to be the #1 class in the conference. Anyway, that'll wrap up the list for the SEC. Be sure to let me know down in the comment section below where you agree with me, where you disagree with me on this list. Let me know which classes and players from those classes you're most excited to see in college football in the future. And if you have made it this far in the video, also go ahead, drop a like on the video. You've made it this far. I mean, might as well, okay? Also, subscribe to the channel for more college football content like this in the future. I will continue to be putting out more signing day content. One of these videos for every class in the Power 5. I'm going to have a lot more content coming up around the playoff and just a lot more college football content coming up in the future. And also, it just really helps me out a lot, helps the channel out a lot. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.